Howdy, I'm Coy here at the Shelter Institute today, and I thought we'd take time to review our wood burning stove that we use here in the shop to keep us warm in the cooler months. This used to be a piece of culvert that sat in between here, but over periods of reheating it started to untwist itself, and it really looked like hell and it was about to have the bottom fall out. So we thought, well, why don't we get a big chunk of iron and stick it in there? They said, do any of you boys around here know how to weld? I said, well, I've done a little bit. I said, all right, Coy, give her hell. That I did indeed. So what we ended up having is Gaius bring in a pipe that was 5/8 inch thick. That's a lot of meat there to weld. Now here we have the end caps that were previously installed on the stove that existed prior to this one. And over periods of reheating, the plate had become curved. Rather than to reflatten these plates, we determined to leave the curvature in there just so over time it wouldn't warp again. So that being the case, it became necessary to scribe this curvature onto the pipe. We're no longer cutting it flat. We have to cut more or less a saddle on this exaggerated or very large piece. The question becomes then, how do we accurately scribe this curve to the pipe? It was a simple solution of using a stick that was brought to a point with a hole drilled through and a Sharpie ran right through that hole. And what you do is you lay the plate on top and you run that scribe around, and that Sharpie follows the curvature of this plate and replicates it on the pipe. That way you get a very accurate layout, which you proceed then to torch off, lay the plate on, and make fine adjustments if you missed anything. And of course over here we have where the stove pipe meets the stove, you need a coupler. This coupler, however, is quite thin walled, and the trouble is, well, you gotta have your heat up enough that you will get a penetrating weld to attach the coupler to the stove. But you need to make sure that it doesn't burn through this piece, otherwise you just got air leaking out, and by goodness, you're losing all your drawing out on your chimney. So what you do is when you're welding that is you direct most of your heat down into this 5/8 inch thick plate. That's a lot to sink it into, and as long as you direct that, you're gonna get a nice, even weld that don't burn through your coupler. That really summarizes why we switched it out. Is just that the other one was falling apart. It was real tinny, real thin, and it was done in a culvert, and a culvert's not meant to be heated up. So of course the way it's put together, it's metal in a spiral and it's hemmed together like so. You heat it up, it starts pulling itself apart. So we replaced it with this pipe. Shouldn't have to replace it for a little while, I should think. Now the question arises, why do we prefer to use a wood burning stove? Well, here at Shelter we build timber frames. And in building these timber frames, you get a fair amount of wood that you are removing for the various joinery that we cut. Well, the question becomes, what do you do with that wood? Do you discard it? No, we're able to effectively use it in heating this shop. So we have fuel that's readily at hand and put it in there, and by God, it keeps us warm in the cold winters of Maine. Now, I would catch trouble from Pat if I didn't tell you that here at Shelter they teach a design build course, and they do some review on the prevalence of welding to the building process. It allows you to do more. You're able to not only work in wood, but now you are able to engage in iron, and if you're able to bring those together into harmony, it creates beautiful pieces. And Pat likes to say with welding, well, the rest of the world can go to hell. So when things start falling apart on you and you can't go to the store to get that part you need, well, by God, if you know how to weld, you can stick a couple pieces of iron together and get right after it. Thank you for joining me here today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video.
Hey guys, here at the Shelter Institute, we've been teaching people to design and build their homes since 1974, and we've been building timber frames for about 40 years. We design and build timber frames, we sell fine woodworking tools, we teach house building classes of many different types. If you'd like to learn more about what we do, check us out in person here at our store in Woolwich, Maine, or online at shelterinstitute.com.